Over the summer, my dad and I built a cheap cabin in the remote woods of northern Minnesota, completely off-grid. And this is how we did it. Earlier this summer, I made this video about my dad retiring and moving into the woods.
This is where I'm going to be living for a little while.
And pitching a tent right where we're building our cabin. It's hard to believe that that was already 6 years ago. Whenever we'd come up here to visit, we'd have to stay in a tent. And as our family expanded, it just didn't make a lot of sense anymore. We needed our own space. And I just knew this would be the perfect spot to build the cabin. This is just one way to build a cabin. I'm not saying this is the right way, but it's the way we decided to build it. The first thing we had to do was the foundation. I didn't take a lot of video of that, I wish I would have. But it was mostly digging some trenches and laying these blocks that we were going to use as our foundation for our skids to sit on top of. It was just such a beautiful day. The leaves were blowing. The temperature was perfect.
Everything's level. It's a nice day.
I was extremely cost conscious when building this cabin and designing it. All through summer, I spent a little bit each weekend picking up new supplies and buying things for the cabin. My dad and I already had all the tools, but you really don't need much to build a cabin.
I wasn't going to say anything, but that's the same shirt you had on yesterday.
Is it? Why should I change my shirt anyway? I only washed it a week ago.
I used 2x6s for all of my floor joists, and my skids are 4x6s. The whole cabin is 10x15, so it is a small cabin, but that helped keep costs down. From the plywood floor and down, we used all green treated lumber. The subfloor and everything above it is all going to be normal lumber. And there's a lot of stuff that I wish I would have done different, but I'm going to do a whole video about that. Even though it was only the first weekend that I started working on this cabin, it sure felt good to have the floor done. You just feel like you've accomplished a little bit of your goals, and you can start to see your ideas take place.
Now we'll have a window on this wall, pointed right over there. We'll have the door coming right in there, and right here will be the big doors. And over there is a raging alcoholic that's picking his nose.
Every day when we finished, I was definitely out of breath. We worked hard and fast to try to get this done in the little time we had on the weekends, which also meant we had to clean up every single weekend and get things put away because I wasn't going to be back for a couple of weeks. My house is about 4 hours away, so I'm not kidding when I say I drove a lot this summer.
Alright, I'm about to head on out of here. We're gonna go up north and we're gonna go build a cabin. Got the whole car full.
That was for sure the hardest part about this project. And I'd guess that if I was able to just get off of work and go work on the cabin, we probably would have had this done in about 3 weeks. 2 weeks later, we went and picked up all the supplies we needed for the walls. Now, when you're building a cabin, you're going to need a circular saw. I personally prefer all the battery-powered stuff, but my dad's a little old school. He wanted to get the generator going and get out his old circular saw that he used to build his cabin. Hauling the supplies actually took us most of the day. We were only able to get done with one wall because of how long it took. I didn't get it on film, but we did cut some of our studs, and we had our headers assembled too.
And it did rain last night. You could see lots of water. So I'm happy I tarped this up just because it keeps things dry, makes things a little more enjoyable.
For this cabin, I built it 16 inches on center, for the rafters and for the wall studs. My original plan was to use LP Smart siding and put that on before we stood the wall up.
We're using some smart siding. So that'll be the siding. The wall is framed out. It's gonna look real nice. The plan is starting to kind of come together. We're gonna notice it more once we stand up this wall. There it is, the first wall. You can kind of see what we're doing. Perfectly level and plumb. They're perfect.
And much more than even the floor, standing up your first wall just feels like you made a huge accomplishment. Like you can finally see what your building's going to look like once it's done. And when you look out the window, you know exactly how the view is going to be from inside your cabin.
All right, so this is our second day, full day. We should have framed it all out first and then squared it and then put the panels on. But we actually framed only half of it, but it was kind of weird, and we're going to panel these first, these two panels. Then we're going to work on this wall, and last we're going to build this one. Look at that guy.
I actually really like using this LP Smart siding. It was really cost effective, and it was super easy to paint later on. And they were pretty lightweight, which is a huge help. Here we were framing up our next wall, and now we got it stood up.
There's that window. Look at that, nice view. There's that window. Look at that, nice view. Huh? And here's this.
Now, at the end of the second day, this is where we got. We almost finished framing out the front side where the double doors were going to be. That was a little more challenging than I expected. So we both decided to just call it a day, and we'll finish it in the morning.
So there's my tent. That's where I'm gonna camp out tonight. This is what we're living in up here while I'm building a cabin. All right, everything's framed up. And half of them are sheathed. Right there. Carpenter Kev. And we got everything's all framed up and all the walls are up. Perfect. There's that. Yeah, you can tell this sticks out a little bit here.
This actually ended up being a big problem later on. We ended up replacing this panel because it was actually the wrong type of panel.
See, one of our panels is actually plywood. You could see how just a tiny bit thicker. Got it all tied together at the top too.
So after finishing up these walls this weekend, I decided to head up to the store to pick up all the supplies that we were going to need for doing our roofing.
We tarped the roof. Got my ridge beam here.
Being budget conscious and building something this big can be kind of difficult. What helped me stay on track with my budget was to only purchase the stuff that I would actually need to use that weekend. Other than going to Menards, which is our closest home store, I also checked prices on Amazon and Facebook Marketplace to see if I could find reclaimed things that I could use in the cabin, like these windows that I picked up on Facebook.
These I just cut to make the braces for the ridge beam.
Since I had so little time to work on the weekends, I did try to do a few things in my garage, and then I just brought them up with me when we went up to the cabin. Although I just wish we could have done everything on site. That way we could have test fit everything, to make sure everything fit perfectly, and to make sure we didn't run into any issues.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of rain, just a little sprinkle here. So Carpenter Kev is taking a minute.
I take a minute every 2 hours or so.
We're cutting these rafters.
For my roof, I'm using 2x6s. The pitch of the roof is a 612 pitch. I originally planned on doing a 912 pitch, but luckily Carpenter Kev talked me out of that. It would have been a little too steep for us to be comfortable walking on.
We are getting rained out right now. It's coming down pretty good. And so we're just going to go for a ride. We're going to go for a drive somewhere. Blow some time. Hopefully it clears up. We'll see. Yeah, it's still raining out. Pretty good here. And there's Carpenter Kev. Yeah, it's raining pretty good. Wow, it's really raining. So we're still doing rafters. After a miserable day yesterday, it looks like some blue sky. There's still a lot of clouds, but we do have some blue sky, no rain yet.
We use these hurricane ties to secure the rafters to the top plate. And then we just toe-nailed the top of the rafter to the ridge beam.
All right, there's what we got done. All the rafters are in.
One of my biggest filming regrets is that I didn't get enough footage of doing the actual roof. That's just because it was kind of hard to film. and because we worked on it really quickly before more rain came. Now, we had a pass-load framing nailer, but that doesn't mean you have to use a framing gun in order to make an off-grid cabin. You could easily have done this with a hammer and nails. That's what we did on all of our shingles too.
That's all gonna be covered up and hidden by soffit. All right, Carpenter Kev, how was your day building this stuff?
Good and bad.
Unfortunately, ran out of time that weekend to finish up the roof and the ice and water shield. So we had to tarp the roof, and I had to plan on coming back a couple weeks later to finish it. When I got back, I was so excited to do the ice and water shield because now we're going to have a roof protected from the elements. After the water and ice was on, there's a lot of things that we worked on just to try to get the cabin out of the elements even more. First, we installed the windows, and we installed the door.
So this is the little cabin. So right now I'm working on the loft. It's gonna go this way and go all the way back.
For the loft, I brought it down below where the top plate was because it gives us a lot more room in the loft, especially if we're going to have a bed up there.
Up there, lots of room. Holy cow, lots of room. That's gonna be used for the soffit.
So the rest of this weekend we spent closing off the cabin to the elements. We worked on our soffit. We also worked on the double doors.
Then we screw all these in here. The vents for the soffit.
Well, this one ain't screwed in even.
It's going. It's not real tight yet, that's why.
I hope everybody has a chance to check out my video on what I wish I would have done different, because some of this I would have done different. But we got it to work.
We got all that stuff done there. Looks great. So now you can see we're building these double doors. They're gonna go right here. So we did 2x framing with the OSB. This is gonna be the front. This is gonna be inside. Right here, this is gonna be on the inside. And then this is gonna be outside, and then we're gonna have siding on here too.
I anticipated a lot of people to wonder, why did I add double doors to my cabin? I made an entire video about this, but to sum it up, it's because this cabin might be used as a storage shed for my four-wheeler someday, when we make a bigger cabin.
This foam will fill in all those gaps there.
I was happy to be done after that weekend. I was not feeling well. And the next weekend when I came up, it was time to finish the roof. I didn't get a lot of footage of this, but I did take some pretty cool drone shots of finishing up the roof. I used a laminate architectural style shingle.
It's lunchtime. You got the shingles on there. I think it looks really nice.
And this was the first time I ever did a ridge vent or any shingling myself. But we think it turned out pretty darn good.
Oh yeah, that looks nice.
After the roof was done, I added some vinyl fascia to make the cabin look a lot more finished.
Painting is one thing I never really enjoy, but I will say the cabin sure looks better in gray. Jet gray is what we're using. Got a little bit left yet in this gallon.
It took me a day to paint, and then I started to work on the trim. I painted the trim before I hung it. I just thought that would be a lot easier. And once the trim was finally on the double doors, I was able to add the hinges.
We got the screed on there so we get the fresh air in tonight. Woohoo!
Now it was time to get done with the rest of the trim on the building. I knew once I finished this up, the cabin would look a lot more finished. So I painted everything and got started hanging up all the trim all along the cabin. And boy did it pop. I'm just using some really cheap 1x3s that I picked up at Menards for about $2 each, maybe even cheaper than that. And so far to this point in the build, I've spent less than $3,000 on everything. It was starting to get chilly out at night, so I wanted to make sure I got everything caulked and ready for winter. Now, I haven't added my walls or my insulation yet, but I wanted to block out the light that I'd get in the morning because I was staying in this cabin while I was building it. Sure looks a lot more finished with all the trim on. I also added a step. Because I wanted a cathedral-style ceiling in the cabin, I had to add these baffles in order to allow airflow to get to the ridge vent. I also really wanted a decorative rafter tie, made out of a log right from our land. I think it turned out pretty awesome. With winter right on the horizon, it's getting colder each night, and I really needed some way to power up my cabin with my generator. So I found this little plug on Amazon, and it works perfect for what we needed it for. And I actually made a whole video about this, so go check that out if you're interested in how it works. Before I could insulate, I wanted to roughen electrical for my cabin. I used 12-2 and 12-3 wire, depending on if it was for my 3-way light switch or if it was for the normal standard outlets. Now this cabin is completely off-grid right now, but I do plan to put some type of solar generator in this cabin and eventually have all these outlets connected to some type of power. I just thought this would create a more finished look if I ever do want to add electrical to the cabin. This one right here goes outside to my generator. That comes down and powers that gray outlet right there. So I didn't record this, but here I have the light switch. It actually is a 3-way light switch, and I'm going to have a light switch over there by the bed. This switch can power a light right up here. This also goes up all the way up here, right here where my ceiling fan is going to go. So this is actually kind of hard to film, but what I did was I laid my tape measure out right here, and then I unroll it to the length that I need, and then I'm able to just put it up. Insulation isn't exactly fun to do, but it is necessary, especially when you live somewhere really cold. Now, this is going to be a 3-season cabin. I'm not planning to be here in the winter, or I would have got a lot thicker insulation. That was definitely not my favorite thing to do, was insulating up there in the loft. But it sure is hard to get everything perfect in there, and it doesn't need to be super perfect, but it's pretty close right now, so I think it's good. Just got to do this part, and I'll be done. I just finished the insulation, so here's how I did. I haven't done the door yet. I've got to get foam insulation. For that, we're going to insulate the door with some of the foam insulation. All right, well, this is it. We are ready to go home. I'm gonna miss it till next spring, but there's a lot of snow coming, and this is gonna get snowed in. There's gonna be many feet of snow. It's been a fun project. All my supplies are up there now. Took them in from outside. Wow, what a summer. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm so happy to get to share this with everybody. If you watch this video all the way to the end, please hit the like button and leave a comment below. Love to hear what you want to see next. We have about 1 million video ideas and a bunch that are in the process of being made and uploaded. So if you subscribe to our channel, you'll see the future of this cabin, and you'll get to see all these other ideas that we're working on. Thanks everybody once again, and we will see you next time.